So over to you, Dr. Mahmood.
Oh, thanks, really. I appreciate inviting us. Though I was in the previous session, some of them I was your student,
No.
but I'm taking the liberty of, putting some words here.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I thought that the video just played was the best start I can make to the subject I'm going to cover. I think in this one, which is Introduction to Climate Change, Economics of Ecosystems. So being an economist, I thought, let's see what I can put together to really, which can benefit this very interesting group, because I have been following you really. I have with me Tabeer, Riaz, who is also working with me. I can give you a little bit of background to how my interest in economics of ecosystems, or I call it, using different names to do our work, how it started. Actually, if I look at the economics of natural resource, that's what I got my PhD from. But then I drifted a bit really more to agriculture policy, water issues, value chains. And then again, coming back for last year and a half in the economics of environments or natural resource management, I think what triggered me was my work here and contacts I made with some of the staff in the economics department. One fine morning, a student girl comes and walks in this water center. Are you listening, everybody? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Just giving you
Yes,
the
we are.
background. Yeah. And she wants to write a paper on environmental economics. So my question was, why me? Because you have such a brilliant really staff there, and they are doing all kind of work on environment and economics. But one of their professors suggested that I have a good field experience in terms of relating to some of the agriculture and water problems. And actually, she was right, because I was working, let me give a bit of my also background. I worked for good 24 years with FAO after doing my PhD in resource economics. There, my bulk of work was on water economics and also agricultural economics or agriculture policy. But the kind of tool I was using there, I think it was using very standard economic theory and standard economic parameters. So I was always wondering that somehow if I can, this tool, I call it policy analysis matrix, and I think Tabeer at the end of my presentation will highlight very briefly that model. So I was wondering that somehow, how can I include the environmental cost? Because the typical way they are estimating these, profits and growth and all this, some of the environmental variables are not taken into consideration. So then I started thinking that maybe this is an opportunity. So I think to link the story, the case studies I'm going to present. So I think one of the guy with whom we are working these days, Mr. Sharif Saab, he took us 2 years back to a farm in Sukheki, where he showed us these two farms. One is cultivating wheat, the other is also wheat, but one is using the conventional methods, the other is using no pesticide, very little fertilizer, and almost 1/10 the water these conventional people use. So in front of that, they estimated the crops of both, yields of both plots, one using conventional agriculture, the other using the paradoxical agriculture he was saying, which is, I'll say it, less polluting inputs, or not using too much of fertilizer, no pesticides, and very little water. So we were very curious to see what the results come out. To our surprise, he showed us the yields from the environmental saving input plot was much higher compared to so the actual results Tabeer will highlight. That really interested me. So I said, maybe he showed us. So the girl coming from the economics department, I told him, let's go to Sharif Saab and see if we can get the data. So we are able to get the actual data, and there it triggered this little research. Uh, to me, that was a kind of a pioneer work, because very few cases have done, included the hardcore policy analysis, the environmental cost, and the results were fascinating. So that renewed my interest in studying more on the economic side of environment. And here we are now, and it's almost 2 years. And I think based on that study, we have, I mean, their interest is there among the academia and also the people around us. Under that background, I've been trying to see if we can also expand my horizon, and that is basically to economics of ecosystem. So let me, okay. Oh, yes, yes. Okay, that's it. This is very much the work we are doing is now, when I go deep, is very much related to climate change. I will run very quickly what are the main issues really. The climate change, number one is the water availability will be affected in semi-arid and glacier melting dependent regions. Increasing frequency of heavy precipitation, or the proportion of total rainfall from heavy falls, especially in high altitude and tropical. Then droughts, we have been doing a bit of project on drought also here at LUMS WITS platform. Droughts will intensify some seasonal and areas due to reduced precipitation and increase evaporation, again vary from region to region. And finally, the sea level will rise. So all these will create different set of problems for different regions and countries. Again, from this, we can deduce three dimensions of sustainable development and climate change. I am, after the review of literature, I'm trying to introduce a new term, which is called sustainomics. Frankly, this is the first time I ran into it really, but I find it very interesting. So what it involves is that this framework involves environmental sustainability, which is very well known, focus on overall performance of the health of the ecological system. Then we look also at the social sustainability that seeks to reduce the vulnerability and maintain the health of the social and cultural system and their ability to withstand shocks. More interesting or relevant to my field of work is the economic sustainability, which aims to maximize the flow of income that could be generated while at least, this is very important, at least maintaining the stock of assets or capital which yields the beneficial output. So we are looking for increasing in income, but we cannot afford to really decrease or degrade our capital assets. So this is really the upshot. The framework helps decision maker to focus on structure of development rather than just magnitude of economic growth. So I think this is playing out very well these days with so many disasters in place, Corona being the latest one, and then we had so many fires globally and other disasters, because the focus of our development was on economic growth. We look at Wall Street to be the main parameter rather than the underlying things that make really this growth work or make sustainable over time. So I think this is under this new Corona crisis, I can see this philosophy is changing, that, okay, it's not the growth we should be running after. There is a natural capital for which we have to look for. And a lot of our problems are these days attributed to them. I'm not going to cover too much, assuming that Dr. Fauziya has covered some of these basic concepts on ecosystem, but just a quick definition, which means that dynamic complex.
Before you move on, can I ask a question here?
Yeah, please.
So, according to the previous slide, what you just explained about economic sustainability, we recently did a concept called greenwashing, in which corporations tend to make it appear as if they are taking into account the environmental impact, or they're including the environmental impact in their production costs. So how can you distinguish between an effort which is superficial and that could be classified as greenwashing versus efforts that actually are geared towards environmental sustainability from an economic perspective?
It's a very good question. It's very difficult to really give some figures that what they mean it. I think it's more or less done as a part of the social responsibilities of these big firms, that okay, we are making so much money, so something has to be done on the environment. If this was a serious effort, I think the way things are, way our planet resources, natural capital is degrading, and it has, just look at the frequency of disasters taking place. I was following it, okay, even for some very developed countries, this year's, there was a debate in USA that wildfires for the forest areas in USA, I think it's destroyed a complete region. And the debate was that why we have not been able to really control it. Now, for me, the answer that came from Trump largely was that it was a mismanagement of forests. If it is a mismanagement, then I think both the private and public sector should have come over this long period of time to do something it. So I think case after case, it's very difficult to quantify, but I think the efforts are not proportional to what the planet is going through. This is how I can respond for the time being. Okay, so I think then I think I move with this ecosystem services. This is a very interesting table or a figure that shows us that what are the different components. We have natural capital, which defined ecosystem structures, processes, and functions. Under that, we had land cover, biophysical properties, biodiversity, subsoil resources, and atmosphere. And I think Fauziya covered most of them really in your, I'm not going to go into details now, or I am very well qualified to answer some of these questions on this technical side. Then I think natural resource, ecosystem, goods and services, that is, I think, interesting. This provides the services of natural resources, regulating services, and cultural services. Then we move to the, on the right, beneficiaries. Again, we can look at from the local, regional, and global level. Then I think more relevant to me is the policies and regulations, which we will highlight a bit further. Now, this is a good, I think, write-up and a slide I pulled out, because this is some kind of work really we are doing it really. We are hoping to do it for WWF. And I think they want to see it really, how the flood water or flood can be controlled. So usually, to me, to address the issues of the flood, we always used to go for these engineering solutions. But I think there is another area which defines the role of wetlands, lands, and marshes. And I think I'm very much on this learning curve on this one, really, and I find it very interesting. That in general, watershed with more wetland, lakes, and marshes is better able to absorb flood water. So I think this is something more research to be done on this one. Wetland, lake, marshes can collect flood water and release it more slowly. So it not only controls it, then it regulates it. Very interesting. From an eco perspective, such a watershed feature should be managed and restored. A natural way to manage flood rather than going for engineering solution. This is what I said. And to me, I think I'd like to do a bit of more research is that in many cases, wetland restoration is low cost method. So I think I can talk about it, about especially the water sector, that how I will introduce that concept a bit later, uh, which is build, neglect, and build. This is really a typical engineering way of thinking, that we make a thing, we neglect its maintenance and how it is, and then we rebuild it. So some of these solutions can be more effective, cost effective, and solving some of our problems. Now, the economic part, I think I was surprised to find out so many methodologies and techniques that are addressing this. This is more an evolving science to value the environment. I think this is a matrix I try to summarize. Some of these interventions based on actual behavior. Some of them are based on intended behavior. We can run quickly. I will spend some time on this one, jointly trying to learn with you, every one of you. Then on the market sides, we look at some of the conventional markets. Are they helping us in assessing the environmental damage, environmental concerns? Or there are new ways of estimating implicit market and constructed markets. What are these? Conventional markets based on actual behavior, effect on production, value in economics term. I think this we will highlight in our case study, which will present that we have used one of the most state-of-the-art methodology to value economics in terms of both financial and economic. Then we can also traditional way look at effect of health, outpass last due to the ill health, what is the cost of it? I think a lot of debate is going on in this corona and post-corona policies. Then defense or protective cost. I think the example I could draw was if drinking water was polluted, extra purification cost. So this gives us a kind of an estimation procedure. Then I think the next is the implicit market. There are a number of really methods which are being used in the environmental economics. One is the travel costs, number of visits per year to a park. That will give us a kind of an estimation. Wage differences, subset of a property value changes in wage rate due to environmental conditions, work in coal mines is one example. Then I think property values, we all know that property value is very much determine what your both socio and other environmental surroundings. Then I think proxy market has no competitive determined price, but substitute may be used as a proxy. Then we have a constructed market where artificial markets are created, constructed for experimental purpose to determine consumer willingness to pay. We can make a question and ask this kind of question. And then there is a second set, which is based on intended behavior. Again, some of these methodologies, I'm still trying to understand in details what they mean by replacement costs is fine. Shadow project, original project was built a dam that updated inundated some forest areas. Then shadow project might involve replanting of an equivalent area. So this is another way of estimating the cost. And finally, the contingent valuation, direct question on willingness to pay for an environmental resource or accept compensation if deprived of its use. So these are some of the techniques which are used. And if I want to go a little bit more into depth, really, I mean, it's just an introduction because one can really venture. I can share with you a good set of material where that really gives a little bit more detail. Then value of environmental goods and services. So one way is to market price available. We have to look at if market price is available, efficient prices and distorted prices. Again, this kind of analysis we have been doing it, and the case study we will present, it will really highlight in detail what is the difference between efficient prices and distorted price. I will not spend too much time here because this will be very well explained in our case study. Then if there is a no market price, then there is a proxy. We look for a proxy available. And if there's no proxy available, what next? Available proxy, then there is a direct proxy methodology, indirect proxy estimation. And as I said, if there is no proxy available, then I think contingent valuation and artificial. So there is a whole bouquet of methodologies available which we can use it really. And I think this is a growing science. Some of this work we have been doing it, but I think the others need to be looked into. Again, within the direct policy, there is a number of tools available which have been listed here, and indirect, which is also. So this is, I try to provide this classification the best I could to give you an overall introduction that what kind of tools and methodologies are available. Again, I think this was, I had the pleasure of working one of the biggest guru on environmental economics, Dr. Penny Yotto. We did a workshop together in Cyprus. He's the director of Environmental Institute at Harvard. And I think he joined us with FAO. And for me, that was very interesting because when he came and he said, oh, your Pakistan is a very interesting case, because I do a lot of my environmental work from Pakistan. This is the professor from Harvard. Huh? He said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to present a case study on water policies in Pakistan. He said, oh, great. This is something very interesting because I have also worked in Pakistan and I have prepared also a case study. Let's put it together and do it together really. But when he shared his case study with me, I was really astonished, the kind of level they were. It will be interesting to highlight the case study. It was, I think the Harvard group worked, these terms were all used in his case study. The case study was that there is he did use the name Karachi. Actually, they studied for water crisis in Karachi. That is way back in the early 90s. So you can imagine when they did it. So what they did, that there is a crisis in the country. How much time I have?
15 minutes.
Okay, I'll just really, but these are some of the stories are more interested than really, I mean, for me, because this story is really, because it was on environment. So what happens is that there is a crisis, he called it Hola area of Pakistan. And the Prime Minister has called for a meeting, emergency meeting, to how to control to address this issue. So he brought all the ministries together, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Water, and Ministry of Planning. These were the four big ministries. And then he really instituted an independent study before that, that they should give their version that what's going on. So what happens was with the crisis in water, it is still there. By the way, now in Karachi, that crisis 2-3 years ago was as alive as like 20 years ago. And what happened was that every minister, they said, oh, we want more water. And then Ministry of Environment say, no, 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 there's water is less. We need water for environmental flow. Then, so everybody had. Then the independent consultant, he come up with a report, which was very interesting because the problem was that water markets in Karachi, I did compare that with some of a water tanker in Pakistan, in Punjab area is selling for like 2,500 rupees. In Karachi, the water tanker is selling water for about 8,000 plus. And guess what? The poor, the people say the people cannot afford and you cannot price the water. What poor are paying for getting a can of water, you cannot believe, and at what price. So this report of the independent consultants comes out that if some of these departments were doing their job, then there is no need for, because all these ministers were saying that these water markets should be really dismantled and they don't have any role. He said if these ministry, especially the Ministry of Water, and now they have created authority, if they were doing the job and providing the consumer a piped water at a reasonable price and reliability, there will no need for these water markets. These water markets are providing a service which these departments are not providing. So he at the end used some of these tools which not in the profit right, market creation, fiscal instrument charges system, and he figured it out, the trade-offs in each of them in solving the problem. And he worked out that these water markets will stay as long as the main institutions or government departments are not doing the job. So I think I have shared one of his publication with you guys, Paniato, and to me he's still one of the biggest guru on environmental economics. Now coming to Pakistan, because I have to relate this with the story in Pakistan, that what's going on. So I think we have brown environmental problems. These are mainly related to your areas, which include industrial wastewater, pollution, domestic waste, water pollution, motor vehicle emission, urban industrial air, and marine and coastal zone pollution. Then we have green environmental problem effect. Again, this is more my area of work, which I've been doing it, irrigated agriculture, in-fed agriculture, forest, rangeland, in economic policies such as, okay, what are the problems? Of course, again, the deforestation and rangeland degradation. This is another subset of our ecological system. Now, how we are valuing all these really, I mean, for brown environment problems, if I'm correct rightly, still they are command and control policies. Just do the regulations, and whether people accept it or not, that's another story. The story in green environment problem in agriculture is that we are heavily subsidizing the irrigation sector for water. Water is the key. So I usually quote a figure which Dr. Fauzi is also quoting these days, that what farmers are paying for an acre of land in the irrigated area, a burger we eat outside is more expensive than what they are paying for an acre of land for a year. So that shows how we are valuing our resources. There is a huge subsidy on the irrigation water, which at the end, again, we can debate it for a long period on this one, but I will see how I can come up. Then I think deforestation range, again, there is no really lack of property rights. I think the present government focus on, regreening Pakistan and all. I hope they also look at this aspect as well, as to create right kind of, property rights on these. So these are some of the problems in Pakistan, but I will like to look more from the water perspective, because that's an area which I have been pushing it for so long now, that we can go case by case. Like for pesticide, uh, our work, which Tabeer will highlight, I think we have shown it already that even if we don't use pesticide, it will not affect our yields. Then I think there is an alternative which is called IPM, Integrated Pest Management Policies, which can also be a substitute. Fertilizer. Fertilizer is an important really area where I think we need to see, because that's one of the major environment polluting. Where, can you tell me where the subsidy to the fertilizer is going to? Is it going to the farmers or the manufacturer of the fertilizer? Anyone has any idea? Hello, are you?
Is it going to the middleman?
Middleman story is not the fertilizer thing, but I think the middleman, the story is for the output, which we can talk it really, because this is another area of my specialization. What happened is that if you go to the literature and review it, the most of the fertilizer subsidy is going to the manufacturers. I mean, in terms of subsidizing the gas or whatever with the energy they are using it really. They are not going to the farmers. What one thing they should do is to curtail these, to take the subsidy out of the manufacturers and use this huge sum of money to promote good agriculture practices, alternative to fertilizer. And I think our work, which will be presented, will showcase that I think absolutely very little fertilizer is needed. And in some cases, which we are completely changing over to nature-based agriculture. After a couple of years, we don't need fertilizer at all. So I think this is something probably we have to look at it. On water, I think this is the key. As I said, there is a huge subsidy. And to me, I think global work, the most successful story, which also look at some of these economic instruments I highlighted, especially the water rights, is to, in Pakistan, 70% of water is already traded, that if I have water and if my neighbor wants it, I can sell him. This informal, though it is illegal. So what is needed here is that we have to, it is written on the wall sooner or later. I always give the example of, this, our communication, the telephones. When I was a kid, to get a telephone in this country, you have to wait for a year and a half with all kind of recommendations and to use your connections, and then you will get it. Now, with this market developed where you can trade your, these cards and all of a sudden, everyone can have a phone and he can really look at the most cost. Same is happening for water in other countries. Australia is a classical case. 20, 15 years, Australia was just like us, really. They were really, trying to see how they can meet the water demands in different regions. So what they did is that they created, first they have separated the water. I'll take more like another couple of minutes and then we're done. Yeah, 5 minutes, that's fine. They created, the first land and water rights were separated. Why was that? Now, if I own a piece of land here, then the water rights comes with it. I cannot sell it. Where they now have, if I have the piece of land, the water rights, if I can't make much money out of agriculture, I can sell the same water to some other competing use at a much higher prices. This is number one. Number two is they have put together a structure that, okay, if a region is short of water, that water can be transferred or marketed. So I think these are some of these economic instruments which are being used in many countries and illegally being used in Pakistan. So I think this is an area probably at Water Center we want to continue the research. Now I think few lessons, I have tried to couple of lessons which probably I'll not really go because some of them already, I will just go for the headings. I think there is a need to change, move away from, as I said, build, neglect, and build to nature-based adaptation. I think this is something is needed. It's a lot more cost-effective. This is number one. Number two, I think I will highlight, and Tabeer will further highlight it. This is the to I think what are the drivers for us to move to better use of our ecosystem? There are two things we need to do, among other things. One is to develop climate smart agriculture, and the second is climate smart water management. In climate smart agriculture, our research has shown, Tabir will only highlight the economic part, but I will like to look at some of the practices which all we need to do, which are very cost effective. One is minimum, don't use too much of the tractors and all that, don't minimum soil disturbance, live mulching. Actually, if anyone wants to see mulching, we have already at LUMS created a small plot, a farm, where we have really trying to develop this climate smart agriculture and using some of these techniques. So we have already planted wheat there, and we are using mulching. It's a top kind of, residuals from the previous crops or some of the other crops. We can use it to cover the soil, so it keeps the moisture. Then I think no field water inundation. We try to flood our rice and other thing. There is no need for it really, the way we are resetting it, and the crop rotation and intercropping. And I think the water smart agriculture, it is amazing. We have plenty of water here in this country. 96% of the water is being used by the agriculture. If we can save good 10, 15, 20% of water, we don't need really to do so many expensive endeavors we are on, building dams and this and that. Do it really if you have the money and you have really, but there are other very cost effective. I can show you a next slide, and to wrap up my thing. This is again, we are doing it that some of the risk and opportunities, the criteria is often used. Really, I don't think I'll cover for that. Protected area, this is a case I'm making for you that we have to really go for protective area. It has a very high value. I was able to pull out this. This one, you guys have to look at this slide. Again, this is some of the value. This is the slide I want to show you. That what can we do? There are so many inexpensive alternatives available to raise extra cubic meter of water, which we are running after these expensive dams and these kind of things. Look at there. The first, these are the interventions, possible intervention. I'm looking at the case of India. I'm pushing it to make a similar kind of study here, where these are some cost savings. Some of the intervention we are proposing under climate smart agriculture and climate smart water management, they are not costs, they are net savings. The cost starts with other. So much can be done in mobilizing extra unit of water, adopting some of these techniques, which come at no price in a cost saving. So I think this is an eye opener I'm leaving for you guys. And I think then some of these instruments, again, can be classified into two. One is command control and one is incentive. And their host of it, the job is to find out which one are incentive based and which are. I think the world is moving more from command control to incentive based interventions, and this is it. And finally, I think we need to mainstream the economy. All we are telling is somehow we have to make our policymaker, planning people, planning mechanism to make aware that some of these instruments needs to be included, and this making the dams and using cost is a starting point to me. If we can make them aware that you can do these things in a very cost effective way and make it in our mainstream, in our planning and policy process, we are at home. Thank you very much.
Eamon has a question.
Okay.
Yeah, sir, I just have a quick question. We were talking about subsidy, right? So I just wanted to ask, this is really simple question, on ethical grounds, who do you think this subsidy should go to? And apart from that, like, what are the other several ethical parameters in the economics of ecosystem?
I think it's a very good question, and I think sometimes subsidy is very controversial. But my problem is that it should go to the people who need it. Who needs the most? If we look at I'm now talking about the agriculture sector. So most of these subsidies program, I have seen it, whether it is in water sectors or even the marketing and all that, the value chain, if we look at it, all the programs from the government side or from the donor side, they start with giving it out to the poor. But if you really do a bit of calculation, most of it end up going to the rich people, the people who have already enough resources to go around. So to answer my questions, I think there's nothing wrong in subsidy if it goes to the people who are in need. But unfortunate part is it doesn't go there. Subsidy has to be also, again, a bit classical case. Now let's come on the consumer side. Now there is a big debate going on. Every day in the morning to the evening, you switch on the TV. Oh my God, rice and sugar cane prices have gone up for the poor. I mean, what they want to do, the policy terms which have been done all along is they try to subsidize bread for everybody. Now, for me as an example, if the bread is like 10 rupees and if it goes to 15, a large section of people who are very noisy does not really make any difference. It is the poor, if they should be targeted and provided with subsidy, I don't have any problem with that. But there is so much leakage in this one that it does not go to really. So I hope this answer, but this is something probably a subject very close to my heart. What is going in the market and in RT and middleman and all these, I mean, right and left, at the end, the poor suffers, and subsidy never goes there. Thanks.
So, Fateh, can I ask Tabeer to present her case study first, and then I'll take your question? Because that way we'll.
Yes, Tabeer, I'm really.
So I'll hand over the floor to Tabeer to present.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Fazia.
Go ahead, Tabeer.
Sorry, I'm 5 minutes, but again.
So to start with, to sum up the concepts shared by Dr. Mahmood, I will share the practical work that we have done so far on rice. As it has already been discussed that over the centuries we have destroyed nature. So to be more specific, So to be more specific, we are destroying the agriculture sector through fertilizer, excessive use of fertilizer, pesticides, and misuse of water over and over again. The agriculture sector is already under crisis as it is largely unprofitable, it's not sustainable, it's not even competitive, and even it's not inclusive. Along with these agriculture crises, we are also facing environmental market failures. I think you people already know this, like environmental externalities, environmental degradation. Even the current crisis or the natural disasters like corona, locust, and deforestation are happening because we have already destroyed our mother nature. So I would like to mention that one of the major reason is that we have already been focusing on the economic growth on the Wall Street, and we count or we calculate our progress, like if we are how many jobs or how many money we are creating in the economy without even preserving our natural capital. So this is the major reason behind it. Even our typical economic analysis doesn't calculate the environmental cost. So the case study that I'm presenting today is a small piece of work, but it is really, really pioneer work done so far, because it is not only the typical economic analysis that the way we do in cost benefit analysis, but it is actually including the environmental cost. So we are including the environmental cost by calculating that how much difference does it make to the profitability. So I'm going to present my results, which I have gathered from two models. So let me explain the two models one by one. One is sustainable and the other is unsustainable. So in unsustainable, we are using excessive amount of fertilizers, pesticides, and excessive use of water, which is also known as conventional way of farming, or you can say industrialized agriculture. Whereas on the other hand, in sustainable model, we are using very little fertilizer, no pesticide is needed, and very minimal amount of water is using as per the requirement of the plant, depending upon each crop. So our work is pioneer because we have reduced our environmental cost, but our productivity and profitability has increased. So in short, the solution is going back to nature, still getting all the benefits which we were ignoring all the time. So I will throw a few numbers. Let me explain a little bit that we have used policy analysis matrix to calculate the numbers. You can see the basic model of the policy analysis matrix. In this, we calculate the financial prices, and the economic prices. Then we see for the divergence. Okay, let me show you the results first. So as we can see, this is the comparison between unsustainable and sustainable model. So the difference it made, let me explain it one by one, that we have decreased the fertilizer by 71%. And we have cut off the pesticide 100%, whereas we have also reduced the number of irrigations needed by the crop by 85%. Whereas if we look at the revenue, it has increased to like 43%. So this is the model which we have used. This is called PALM, Policy Analysis Matrix. So I will just highlight the few numbers from this as well, especially the domestic resource cost. Actually, it tells us that the domestic resources which we are putting into the in how much it is giving us back. So if we compare the results, this is for rice. If we compare the unsustainable rice and sustainable rice, so in unsustainable, it is around 0.84. It means we are getting 100 rupees back by putting 84 rupees. So our profitability is not that much. But for rice, for sustainable, we are just putting 36 rupees to get 100 rupees back. So the picture is clear that we are getting a lot of profit in sustainable agriculture along with preserving our environment or with environmental friendly practices. So it will solve a number of problems. Just a minute. It will solve a number of problems, like it will make our agriculture sector more profitable. It will also preserve our natural capital, which is land, labor, and land, water, and biodiversity. It will also increase the productivity, profitability of the farmers. It will also make our agriculture sector competitive. For example, if we take an example of wheat, if we look at the wheat produced through conventional way of farming or through unsustainable model, it sells around $200 per ton in the international market. But on the other hand, if we look at the organic wheat, which is produced using sustainable model of farming, it sells around $600 per ton in the international market. So through this shift, we are also helping even the small farmers. They would be able to make a lot of profits. We can make them wealthy. So our policies are mainly inclusive. We are also including the small farmers. So to our surprise, government agencies, donors, and farmers, small farmers, larger scale farmers are very keen to learn and practice this. So as Dr. Mahmood has already mentioned, in LUMS, we have got a piece of land to transform it into a sustainable modeling. And we are also very keen to collect data from there on daily basis to validate our results, as Dr. Mahmood already has mentioned that from where we got this data. So we are our eyes on that land, and we are collecting data on daily basis to validate our results, just to compare the both models. So even our work is quite in line with the current government policies, as they have introduced many environmental friendly policies and try to preserve our natural capital. So that's all from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tabeer. I think the floor can now be open for questions. I will take Fateh first and then Rafi after Fateh.
Yeah. So, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah.
So first of all, my question isn't even a question; it's a comment. What I wanted to do was that I agree with the importance of how we need to reduce our usage of water in farming, and I want to comment on that in relation specifically to the water shortage in Karachi. So, because of the very large use of water by the farms in Sindh, most of from the bulk lines of water supply that head towards Sindh, many of these large landowners, they siphon off water from these bulk lines. I mean, if I remember correctly, according to one report, 41% of the water meant for Karachi was siphoned off by landlords. That is no small amount. And clearly how the landlords need to start introducing less water intensive measures, and how institutions, particularly the law and order institutions, need to start doing their job better. Thank you.
Rafi, do you want to go next?
Hello, Assalamualaikum. I just wanted to say that the research says the revenue is also increasing, as well as it's a really smart way of doing our agriculture. So, and even the farmers, like Ms. Tabeer said, are on board. So, why aren't we like getting them? We can completely avoid making any policy if the people if the farmers are ready to do this, then we can create the culture for them to all adopt such methods like the ones we've explored at LUMS. So can we not just go to the next step and present it to them? And
can I also do?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and I think in fact we have been so busy for last 6 months in mobilizing farmers of all kind, because myself and Tabeer are working very closely. Let me also say that it's not LUMS work only. It's we have a outfit which is called Pedawar, led by Mr. Sharif. He has about, he claims he has I don't know, I forgot the numbers.
1,000
What,
farmers.
what the WhatsApp groups he has really. No, I'm
Yes.
talking farmers. He says
100,000.
about 10,000 farmers really. No, because I have traveled with him, and all the time when I'm going to Islamabad with him, he's constantly answering the questions from the farmer. So to answer your question, I'm a witness that I think it is already. I will summarize this. There is a silent revolution is in the making, really. It is really because I am part of it, really, and it will be so good for the nation that if we can. To summarize, the biggest problem of the agriculture sector right now is the high cost of production. So I think I'm so excited that he's showing through these practices that costs can be reduced significantly. In other countries, if we institute these kind of policies, the revenues or the yield decreases. But in this case, we are even witnessing the yield increase. So it's totally a win-win situation. The latest group of people who are showing interest in this one, guess who? The guy who were the risk, the
Risk.
yeah,
Risk.
yeah. So they came, they got to know. So this will answer your question. So they said, we got a piece of land because once they came here, I told them the story. So they got interested. But they have a piece of land and they said they want to really see how they can use. They call it, the name is picnic being used. I cannot even pronounce what it all means. Maybe Tabeer can really. Kudrati Nizam Pedawar, something like this. So I think he wants to go convert it to picnic. And there are so many other people I know right and left whom we have invited to some of the workshops. They want to go. So I think we are doing it in a very systematic way from the LUMP platform and the ministries and the donors. We are seeing how we can move this process forward. And I think for young people like you guys, I think this is time to really be part of this, really. I'm very confident that I think it will pick up as the time goes. I'm not looking at government and all that because the process is so slow and there are so many hurdles. And the big thing is the fertilizer companies, the big multinationals. I think we are already getting the heat that what we are telling that please don't, there is no need for pesticides and very little fertilizer. So I think we will really navigate through tough times. We are already in it. And I think the cause is so big that we have to keep, and we have the numbers. The good point is what LAM's contribution is, what little pilot work we had it, when we show them the number, because unless you don't show the profitability, they don't really get really converted.
Yeah.
So I think we are doing the right things. Let's hope it works.
Well, this is amazing. It's really good, and that's amazing news.
Yeah, I think I will very much encourage the young people, come and have a discussion with us. Probably, I mean, we can sell you professionally.
Okay. Does anybody else have a comment or question? Dr. Mahmood, do you have a final comment? Dr. Mahmood
No,
and Tabeer, if you have any final comments, you're more than welcome to put it now.
no, I think this is actually first exposure we are making to a LUMS class. So I'm very privileged and I'm very thankful for you to giving us the platform to really present this. And I think this is one, as Tabeer said, that a silent revolution going on in the field, but there is a silent revolution we are doing it at our with this little research group really, and if we can expand it. So our horizon is that we did it only for rice, but now once some of these projects are coming up and we get the real-time data, we will expand our analysis to other crops. And not only one crop, because farmers look at the profitability for the entire year. So we will get into multiple, the crop rotation in a given year. And it will be even more exciting, the results.
Great. So I think I would like to thank both Dr. Mahmood and Tabeer for making the time to come and speak to my students. And I agree with you. They're an amazing bunch, and I always enjoy interacting with them.
No, so you are part of it because we are bringing the environment thing here.
I'm also the student today, but I think if Dr. Abubakar has any closing remarks, after that we can finish the class. And they'll probably.
Dr. Abubakar is here?
Yes, he's been listening to your story.
So, Mahmood sir, I'm also spying on you. So Fawzia was saying that she's spying on her students. So I'm actually spying on you.
I think this is interesting. So I think I said let's बाहर तो पता नहीं we can do much ना अपने ग्रुपों में तो करें ना कुछ.
नहीं बिल्कुल जरूर. So I just wanted to sort of say to the students कि देखो आप लोगों ने ये जो story है आज ये एक ही story आपने 3 एंगल से सुनी है. So महमूद साहब वो सुल्तान भट्टी साहब भी आए थे, उन्होंने भी आके इसी ग्रुप में बात की थी स्टूडेंट्स के साथ.
जी
मुझे they've already listened to the practice part of it. कि इसकी वो जो मल्चिंग की और इंटरक्रॉपिंग और उस पर बड़ी अच्छी डिस्कशन हुई थी. Then last time we talked about technology. तो फौजिया ने डिजिटल एग्रीकल्चर के ऊपर बड़ी अच्छी एक प्रेजेंटेशन दी. And it was also about कि sustainable solutions को डिजिटल solutions के साथ हम कैसे मिला सकते हैं. So the same thing we saw. आज आपने today we actually looked at the economic side of things. कि देखिए technology is making sense, the practice is making sense, but even the economics is making sense. यानी देखिए in the end if the agriculture is not profitable and it cannot lift people out of poverty or it cannot make farms profitable, तो फिर ना तो टेक्नोलॉजी का कोई फायदा होना है ना कोई प्रैक्टिस की इनोवेशन का कोई फायदा होना है. And I think that closes the story. तो इस कोर्स में I think probably this theme has been driven pretty hard by Fawzia. So I'm happy that you are now part of